oh, that didn't work. Okay. So this is, so say you have an extension. Going to, there's your extension. We'll go to it. And you're going to, so say you're writing your extension. And it's like name class foo. I don't know, like, you know. And say we want to echo the meaning of life, universe, and everything times 3, because who doesn't want 3 times of everything? And okay, so say that's our extension. Cool extension, right? Well, because this meaning of life and universe and everything is secret, so we must make it private. Anyways, and we want to use CodeSniffer with it. So first, we need to make sure we have a composer file if we don't already. Not sure if this is the best way to generate one, but that's what we're doing. So I'm going to make a blank one. We're going to make a dev dependency. So for those not familiar with Composer, it is a dependency manager for PHP. It can be used to manage your dependencies, but also your developer dependencies, which are testing and that sort of thing. So MediaWiki / code. Hopefully I don't make any embarrassing typos here. Okay, and we want the latest version. Often you want to specify the exact version because if you just specify like use the latest version, then they update the version and maybe the code sniffs change and suddenly your thing is breaking without you changing anything. It could be really confusing, at least I find it. So I like to do the exact version. So when anytime I update thing, I check that it still passes with the update and it's not like, you know, so it doesn't just randomly start failing with no input on my end. Okay, so that's running. It should download it now, hopefully. Ooh, oh, couldn't be found in any version because I typed it wrong. Okay, so if the issue is you make a typo, you go and correct the typo, and then your typo goes away. So as you can see, it's downloading the thing and some of its dependencies. So now it's downloaded. We also need to add a Php Css file to tell it what to scan. We're just going to use a basic one, right? This was going to be more impressive when I was going to copy and paste from the window I already had it pre-typed in, but okay. I guess I'll just do this. So normally you would probably download this from, like there's an example extension in Git that has like all the kind of boilerplate stuff. But this is basically saying use the MediaWiki coding conventions. So you want that. Maybe your project isn't a MediaWiki style coding convention. You want different ones, like, you know, it's customizable. So we start scanning in this directory. And so we only want to scan PHP files. And, nope, that would have not worked. Okay.
It's more impressive seeing you remember that stuff than seeing it come.
I mean, I'm copying it off this window laptop right here. I'd say I'm not that impressive. I'm not that cool. Maybe one day. Alrighty. So now we want to add a shortcut to compose.json. Technically, the step isn't required, but otherwise the command to run it is a little confusing. So in essence, a use of spaces instead of tabs. For shame, default composer. So basically this is saying make a composer target named test and then run these commands. So you can use this with other testing stuff too, like if you have unit tests, maybe the test command checks all the code conventions and then it checks the unit test. So this is also kind of boilerplate that normally you just kind of copy and paste from some other extension that already has this working. Okay. Alrighty. You are correct. Now, so now we're ready to test it. As we will see shortly, almost certainly I maybe made a JSON mistake, but it's probably already caught, but if I made any more, we'll see it very soon. So we just simply run composer test, and oh, it found a bunch. It scrolled off the screen though. So, okay. Yeah, so it found on line 6, for example, it expected one space after. In MediaWiki, we like to call it spacing style. You know when your code's all cramped together and can't breathe? Probably not, because I don't think anybody else likes this style. But we really do, where we have spaces literally everywhere. So in this place, I didn't put a space between the opening parentheses and the argument of the function. So it said that's wrong. But maybe, and for example, it says you're using tabs. You can't use spaces to indent. You should use tabs. It says you need a space between the multiplication, before the multiplication operator. So from there, we can see maybe some of these rules, we don't like them. Maybe that's not the way we code. We can exclude any of them we want. So say we like our multiplication operator to be close to numbers. It's math. The math should go together and not contaminate the rest of the code. So maybe we want to change that. So we could have a thing saying that we want to exclude this rule. Helps if you spell it correctly. Okay, so if I wrote that right. So now, so last time it found 12 things. So if we do it again, oh, see, I did something wrong. Oh, yeah, I didn't close the rule. See, this is also what happens when you don't indent things. You make mistakes like this. Okay, so now it only finds 11 things. So we got rid of the one thing. We got rid of complaining about the space before. It still complains about the space after, but no longer about the space before, because that's how we like our code. And who are they to tell us how to do our code, other than the way we say they should? So the other cool thing about this tool is not only can it tell you when you're doing something wrong, it can fix it sometimes. Sometimes, like, it's impossible to know how to fix it correctly. Maybe if you're, like for example, it gives you an error if your line is more than 100 letters. Like where to break the line is not really something you could determine algorithmically and still really be sane. I mean, you could probably do it so the code is valid, but it's still gonna be crazy. But so if we run composer fix, so it said it fixed 11 errors, but there was one error it didn't know how to fix. So let's see what that is. See, it's saying the class foo doesn't match the name of the file, test.php, which in MediaWiki is a requirement. So maybe if we move test, oh. So now we have that file as foo.php. It looks like that. See how they restructured it? Although they added a lot of tabs there. I think they didn't get rid of the spaces. So maybe the autofix thing isn't perfect all the time, but it's pretty good. Now if we run composer test, so it runs, it returns error code of 0, and it's all good. So yeah, that's basically what I had for that. Unfortunately, Lego isn't here, so I'm sure his presentation was probably much better and cooler. He knows a lot more about CodeSniffer than I do. But yeah, so anyone have any questions? So first, after you invent strong AI, you then just write a module to, like CodeSniffer's very module, so you just like add the strong AI module, and then you're golden.
So I think if I'm understanding this right, this is to review the styling of PHP code and maybe other scripts, but is there such a tool for wiki text and template formatting within the wiki, content of the wiki?
Not quite like this. There's a thing called, like in Wikimedia, we have a thing called linter, which detects certain mistakes. Wiki text code is also very hard because it's white space sensitive in a lot of places, which often makes it very hard to write nicely. It's kind of a terrible programming language. It's great for writing out, you know, text, but like, and it's great for small macros. But once you start getting full-on programming, it starts to fall apart pretty fast, at least in my opinion. Opinions vary. Often, at least in the Wikipedia world, for complicated templates, we've moved to Lua with the Ubuntu extension. I don't think we have any built-in tools for formatting code, but I'm pretty sure such tools exist as like external things. This wouldn't be used. This is a PHP-specific tool, but I'm sure there's equivalents for Lua too.
Yeah, I guess that was my point, is that once templates become fairly complex, then it's frustrating to find the thing that's broken. And it'd be awesome if there was a tool, but I guess we haven't really investigated Lua in our case, so we probably should do that.
Yeah, it can be very frustrating. I often find I go to like special expand templates and like expand it one layer at a time. But yeah, debugging templates is a nightmare.
We're running a little bit late, so Brian's going to move on to his next presentation, and then if there are any additional questions afterwards.
Okay, Brian might need a minute to figure out how he's going to do this with his laptop.
Don't forget to hit the red button.